Elon Musk is out there using the cover-up that Pam Bondi is so clearly engaged in, disgraceful cover-up. And I like Pam Bondi personally, but I'm ashamed as an American to see what they're doing. But he's using that to say, hey, we need a new political party. Like everyone's involved in the Epstein cover-up, which is true. We need an America party, and I'm running it. Where does this, is he serious? Where does this go?
He filed it with the FEC. I would give some caution to Elon. Tucker, you and I have seen a lot of rich people come and go in Washington.
Yes.
And the consultants see you coming from a mile away, Mr. Fiscally Conservative, Socially Liberal. I'm just going to put that out there. The Bipartisan Policy Center and all these other people, they've rolled up that entire market. They have plenty to sell you, PowerPoints about ranked choice voting and a few other things and all that. So for all of them, I wish you the best of luck because you're all about to get filthy rich off of Elon.
Can you just explain a little bit? So I'm from DC, so I know what you're talking about. But for people who aren't, what exactly are you saying?
Well, I'm saying that there is a long fetishized idea of an American third party, which is fiscally conservative, which is socially liberal, which is moderate on immigration, and which is very comfortable with oligarchy, and that those forces are extremely well funded and they have a lot of research which could back up whatever your proclivities are, and they will happily sell it to you for 10 times market price and sit with presentations to convince you that this is a great idea. And actually, I mean, the irony is if Elon's politics were more reversed in this sense, I actually think he would be onto something. So my belief is that both of the parties actually do have not answers directly, but directionally to the fundamental problems of our age. Immigration, and I think the Republican Party obviously is solid or has come a long way on the issue of at least the base, let's say that.
The voters.
Yeah, the voters on the issue of immigration, from the Gang of Eight party and rebellion to where we are today. And immigration, I still believe, is one of the most central and important issues of our time. But let's put the other side, and we can take this one big beautiful bill as an example. We increased the defense budget by $150 billion. Now, I will not get into the actual specific Medicaid cuts, but I think it's everything in Washington is about priority. So we extended the tax cuts from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. The vast majority of that benefit largely accrues to people who are already rich. Most of that, in particular, accrues either to the high W-2 income earner. I saw somebody point out correctly that most of those people are Democrats, so it's a little bit ironic, if you're just thinking purely in terms of politics. We didn't have any interest in closing the carried interest loophole. We didn't have any interest in looking at the step-up basis, at looking at financialization. And there's so many areas, hundreds of billions of dollars ripe for the taking without having to touch a single benefit to an American citizen. And instead, we rewrote the way that Medicaid and food stamp programs are going to work, which could potentially impact tens of millions of Americans. Now, again, I think there's legitimate criticisms around work requirements and welfare and all of that. I don't necessarily criticize that, as opposed to this fetishization that I saw from GOP congressmen who were like, yeah, it's good that people are going to lose their health care. And I said, look, whether these people are working or not, it's not good that anybody loses health care.
I agree.
And so that's what I mean about where if Elon's politics were flipped, I think the Democrats, at least rhetorically, do have correct focus on issues like health care and around, or at the very least, the way that our economy is structured. Now, they may not mean it, and I don't think they mean it in practice, but at least rhetorically. So if you were to marry those three issues about immigration restriction, about focus on quality of life, cost of living, healthcare, and also just broadly about restructuring our economy for productive purposes that distributes not through socialism, but through a well-ordered and a well-regulated capitalism that distributes the benefit across all sectors of our society. Now, that's an America party I could get on board with.
I totally
But there's
agree.
no funding for that, right?
So if someone got up and said, I'd like an economy where you don't have to hire an illegal alien to raise your kids, your wife can stay home and raise your kids if she wants to. And most women do want to for the period when they're little. I mean,
if they want to, that's
most
fine.
women want that, and every survey shows that. So if you were to say that, in other words, if you were to respond to the desire of the majority, you'd probably be shot to death. You can't say that.
Right.
Like, it's better to raise your kids than to work in a bank.
Right.
Oh, right-wing extremism.
Yes.
Let's just seal the borders till we figure out who's here and restore meaning to citizenship. What? Racist. Maybe we should stop giving billions in aid to stop trying to run the world when we're not good at it at all, and just preserve our fundamental national interests. Isolationist, Nazi, anti-Semite. It's like,
Or in socialist when we talk about healthcare.
Yeah,
or any of those other
socialist.
issues.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like there's a huge opportunity for someone who would talk like that.
That's a real America party. I mean, at his best, the 2016 Donald Trump campaign was what I just talked about. I did not recognize it at the time. I was telling you yesterday, that election night broke every political conception and idea I had.
Man. None of us is paying very close attention during the summer. The news cycle calms down, families travel, people are relaxed, you're at the beach. It's all great, except the people in Washington never stop. It gives them a chance to advance their agenda without you noticing because you're on vacation. That means new regulations, more censorship, the continued erosion of the Bill of Rights, the values that built this country. We want to talk about something that can help reverse this trend. Beam's creatine. How is it connected? Well, Beam's creatine is clean, no fillers, no synthetic garbage. It boosts cognitive function, it supports muscle strength, and it helps protect brain health as you age. The people in charge don't want you to be strong, clear thinking, independent, of course, because a population like that is a threat to their control. So now's the time. Beam is running a sale for our listeners for Prime Day. For the next 48 hours, get up to 40% off the whole store. That's everything. Their best-selling creatine, of course, but also the rest of their excellent products. This is their biggest sale, the biggest sale they're going to have, the biggest you'll see anywhere, and it's only for our listeners. Go to shopbeam, BEAM.com/Tucker for up to 40% off. Shopbeam.com/Tucker, up to 40% off.
Which is the best thing that ever happened to me because it allowed me to free my mind to read all of these other people who I had never considered, who I was told were illegitimate, within professional Washington. And what it came to the conclusion is that professional Washington is illegitimate and has no idea what allegedly its own voters want.
Why did so few people do? I had the same experience, which it was hard for me because I've been there for so long, but it was so liberating and I'm grateful for it. And I'm grateful to Trump for that. But why did so few people do that?
Because asking those questions, that is not asking those questions and coming to what I think are the right conclusions about our economy and about this restructuring of our entire political base. I mean, the way that voting patterns over the last decade have changed is unbelievable. And when you actually answer a lot of those questions, you come to them that are very, inconvenient for the empire. The empire currently runs on cheap labor, which is immigration related. It runs on war abroad, military industrial complex, if you want to call it. But all of these foreign entanglements and pushing billions of dollars, to policing the ends of the earth, something that I always want to come to the architects of the American empire, General Eisenhower and General Marshall. General Eisenhower in particular said it would be a failure if American legions acted as Roman, that were deployed to the vast ends of the earth, policing it. His vision for the American empire was to set up well-ordered states in Europe and to then let them handle it from that point forward. General Marshall and others, yes, they had the Marshall Plan, but the idea was about creating self-sufficiency that could allow America that could return to where things were broadly in more the 1940s environment. But what I'm saying is that if you look at all of that and you start to speak against it, and these are what the voters want, you start to come up against the most powerful interests in the world. Healthcare is 20% of our GDP. We have the worst health outcomes in the developed world. That's insane. Why? It's not because our healthcare system is not working all that well. It comes down to immigration. We talked about cheap labor. With war, that's foreign governments. It's the ideology of the imperium, which is all about basically transnational loyalty as opposed to loyalty to your own citizenship and really to your own country. And then broadly about oligarchy. And because when we look at the way, how do you become rich in America today? A few years ago, I went to the Forbes billionaire list, and I just restricted the list to the number of new billionaires that were added to that list. The vast majority of those new billionaires in America were people who worked in hedge funds and in finance. And this is why, in some ways, the left is wrong. They often criticize, let's take Elon as an example, and Elon is a complicated figure. But, look, I have a Tesla. I encourage everybody to get in one at least once because it's like getting an iPhone 4 for the first time. It will change your entire conception of what a car is. Now, if people were getting rich creating an American car company, I would be ecstatic. But that's not what they're getting rich from. They're getting rich from extractive, addictive capitalism, let's say in finance, right? Basically creating, unproductive trading systems which are only enriching themselves and then rigging our tax code so they pay lower taxes than small business owners, maybe like you or I, or the average person on the street who gets taxed at a higher rate for his labor. Let's take, other examples like the more, all the so-called great companies coming necessarily out of Silicon Valley. The vast majority of that money, as Peter Thiel famously said, we're promised flying cars, all we got were 140 characters. There is something deeply true about that, about the experience of the technology industry has largely been about extractive capitalism and addiction on our phones, and about industries that rely on that as opposed to products that make our lives better and make.
Boy, they lecture you about that. I have friends in
this will ignite
in the tech business who I really like, who I consider so smart and interesting, and I guess we all get preachy about what we're doing with our lives. I mean, I get preachy about journalism. We're here to tell the truth. So I'm trying not to be too judgmental. On the other hand, I don't see technology over the past 80 years. What about antibiotics and the polio vaccine? Okay, great. But in general, net, as we say in the douchebag industry, I don't see it as a net plus at all. Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.